My name's Amanda and I'm Education Chair and Chapter Rep for the Palm Beach County Native Plant Society. This presentation is all about creating a permaculture food forest using native plants as keystones. What does that mean? It means that the plants that are natives in your food forest are the ones that are creating a healthy ecosystem. So we're going to talk about that today, and I'm going to show you how you can make that happen in your garden. So up to 90% of our daily meals come from the food forest. We average about 70% of what we eat coming from the garden, and that's because we have a range of anywhere from 50 to 90%. That's only made possible because we have guilds around our natives. So with climate change, political instability, desertification, and more, we wonder what's going to be left for our children in the years to come. For those cultivating food forests and permaculture gardens, the answer is simple: beautiful abundance. So when creating a food forest, there are immediate benefits. One, there's ecological restoration through the use of natives. There's year-round food sources for humans and wildlife. And there's free leisure. So my husband and I joke that the food forest has replaced our meal subscription boxes, our gym membership, our marital therapy, and so much more. It's saving us money and enhancing our quality of life. But as we create the food forest, we're every day choosing our processes. So the food forest is an approach to edible landscaping, and it's beautiful and prolific. There are up to 9 layers of edible crops. So the tall trees, the short trees, shrubs, herbaceous plants, ground covers, tubers, vines, but also wetland crops and mushrooms. And you can support an entire family on just 3,000 square feet by creating these tiered layers. And so in this way, the process is multifaceted. Cognitively, you're planning out what plants. It's symbolic. You're choosing the plants that you love, that have meaning to you. It's affective. It's an emotional process. There's joy. It's perceptual. You want it to be beautiful. You want to be able to have an aesthetic, and it's kinesthetic and sensory in that you're putting your fingers in the dirt and you're able to take in the beautiful aroma and taste all of that flavor that suggests that it's nutritious. So when you have natives in a food forest, the result is a biodiverse ecosystem that's resilient. And so the resiliency lies in a historically rich approach, whereas the native plants are hosting soldier bugs. The native plants are bringing in beneficial insects that are going to eat the leaf eaters. So these are the carnivorous insects eating the leaf eater insects that would be preying on your crops. So sometimes people take an all or nothing mindset when they're in the garden. So we're talking about middle path here with guilds. It's not all natives, it's not all exotics, it's both. So using your natives to host beneficial insects and to serve as your pioneer species. When you first move into a property, it's probably covered with sod, low soil fertility, very hot, brutal sun, too much sun. So by planting your natives, they can handle these conditions, and they create a situation where now your fruit trees are going to flourish more easily. They're going to create more fertility in the soil, they're going to have the beneficial insects, and they're going to create shade. And you may say, why would you want shade in a food forest? Well, for one, it's hot. It's hot for you, it's hot for the plants. And if it's hot for the plants, you're going to need to install an irrigation system that's going to be prone to breaking. Whereas if you have your natives, they're going to provide dappled light, which is the ideal light for most plants. And with constant leaf littering and droppage, it's going to create that soil fertility and keep the moisture in the ground. So when you're deciding, should you plant fruit trees on your property if you're a nativist, the answer is absolutely. So having food in your backyard along with natives is the ideal situation. Buying food from the grocery store means you're supporting a system that is plowing down native forests, acres, miles of acres, for roads, for airplane runways, for stores and factories. And most food is traveling thousands of miles before it gets to you, which means that it's not that nutritious. So even if you're, a vegan or a raw vegan, that if you're buying it from the grocery store, most of the nutrients are depleted, right? So you want to grow the food in your backyard so that the nutrients are right there, right? There's no aging out occurring. And also, that the food is not displacing natives, right? It's coming from your backyard right beside a native plant that you have planted. Having food in your backyard is ever more important, especially post-COVID. Florida has higher rates of food insecurity than most other states, which is so surprising considering that we can garden year-round. Nearly 1/3 of children in Florida are food insecure, and that rate's increasing since the pandemic. And there's a need to adopt more resilient food systems. Growing food in your backyard is the most resilient food system that you can have. So the blue zones are doing it. What does that mean? Who are the people in the blue zones? These are people living the longest, that they live beyond 100 disease-free. And what do all these areas have in common? Well, people have backyard gardens. That's what they all have in common. And what they also have in common is that they're making food from those backyard garden plants. And so they're getting micronutrients. And so in the United States, micronutrient deficiency is considered a hidden hunger because it occurs even if a person's getting enough calories. So think about the average person in the United States. 76% of Americans are borderline obese, and that's not because they're eating healthy foods, right? They're getting more calories than they need, but not enough micronutrients. They're not getting nutrition that they need. And so this is called the hunger-obesity paradox, that they're hungry for micronutrients that they're not getting through, for example, fast food. So micronutrient deficiencies underline many illnesses, and nearly half of Americans have at least one preventable chronic illness related to diet. And so the American Cancer Association lists 5 main causes of cancer. Number 1, diet and lifestyle. So when you select your plants, people say, oh, select the plants that you're already eating. Well, most plants that you're eating from the grocery store are annuals, and so you're going to want to find substitutes for what you're eating. So perennial versions of those annuals. You like spinach? What's a perennial spinach? Ibica, katuk, longevity, Okinawa. So these are the plants that you want to grow, and you want to plant them in a way that creates a guild with the natives. So natives like oaks host beneficial insects that keep pests and diseases down to a minimum. So growing pumpkins, for example, under oaks yield huge harvests. So zucchini can be replaced with green pumpkin, right? Instead of buying your pumpkin seeds from the store, you can just get them right from your gourd. So in this way, you have the opportunity to create a structured or unstructured way. So what are you eating? If you start to buy from farmers markets or start to make friends with food foresters, then you can just replant what you get from those people. It's cheaper to buy food to eat than it is to buy food to plant. So buying a pumpkin, planting those seeds, you're going to get way more bang for your buck. You can eat the pumpkin, you can plant the seeds, both. So 20% of effort can yield 80% of the results. That is called the 80-20 principle, and that's what we want to do in a food forest. So prioritize just like 20 crops to start. Boost your access to nutrients. Get more from your daily garden. Decide which plants are your top 20. So you're going to want to think about which plants you eat the most. So in the United States and around the world, there are only 3 crops that account for 60% of calories consumed: rice, wheat, and corn. So what are your substitutes for wheat? Jackfruit seeds are an easy one. Pigeon pea, right? These are grain legumes. So find things that are less labor intensive, perennial alternatives, because you don't want the plant to die in 2 months and then have to do it all over again. Let a plant live for 1,000 years. Give it to your kid. So you can plant these things. So you need flour. That's kind of fundamental to our society. Think donuts, bread, pasta. Coconut, cassava, jackfruit, green banana. These all make good flours. So for example, keystone plants support the most insects that are beneficial. And we've got oaks, cherry, pine, blueberry, maple, elms. These all have high edibility. So you don't have to pick either an edible or a native. You can pick these keystone natives that have edibility. And in Korea, for example, they love making acorn foods, like little cookies and things. And this is something that humans lived off of many years. So it's a good native novelty food, but also it has historical relevance. So what I like to do is, maybe I'm not eating acorns, but I am planting the oak trees and allowing my oaks to live, and then I am planting around them. So I'm doing cardamom, katuk, for example, and around my pines I'm planting rosemary, I'm planting pineapple, papaya. So the idea here is to plant your crops that are going to be able to give you fruit, vegetables, protein, and all kinds of things. So with papaya, you have all of that. Papaya and pigeon pea and banana are kind of your 3 top plants that are going to give you fruit, vegetable, protein, flour, and vinegar. All of that, just 3 plants. We also have red maple, and so this is a sugar source, right? maple syrup. Having sugar is one of those luxury items, but it's also something people crave and that they're going to feel like they're really doing without it. They don't have it on site. Native maples do produce syrup. They can be tapped. And so when you're planning out your food forest, it's the 60-30-10 breakdown. 60% macronutrients. These are like starch, carbs, protein, oil. And then 30% micronutrients, dark leafy greens, B12 sources, colorful fruits. And then your 10% sources like sugar, right? Things that are yummy, things that are medicinal like sage, mushrooms. So elm is a good example. It's becoming increasingly rare in Florida. So not only by planting elm are you providing yourself with a novelty kind of native food source, but you're supporting the ecosystem, you're restoring depleted plants that are now endangered in many ways. And so you can think of this in a way that the natives are your canopy, they're your tier 1 plants, and then you're going to be adding beans, nuts, starchy tumors, healthy fats, and all kinds of foods that you're going to love to eat and that you're going to live off of if you wanted to. So you're going to have your own process, and hopefully this is unique to you because the more joy you have in the garden, the more often you're going to be out there. So having a beautiful yard is a good option, right? A food forest is no more time consuming than a traditional landscape, but it's going to offer you a greater return. And as long as you do it in an aesthetic way, then it's going to offer a great return in terms of shade, privacy, and aesthetics when people are looking to sell or buy property. So there's a lot of research on how to get a bang for your buck using landscape. And so there are ways to design your food forest so that it does that for you. So when you pick your top 20 plants to interplay with natives, think about when they're going to yield. So some plants yield right away within like 10 months or less: Cassava, pigeon pea, papaya, chira. Others are going to take 2 years to really get established. Banana, chaya, moringa, Inca peanut, katuk. Then you're going to have them like take 3 years. Jackfruit, mulberry, avocado, tropical almond. And then 4 years, coconut, macadamia. So you're going to want to be able to plan that out, and most importantly, just plant your staple crops first. Happy planting!